Welcome to the Weaving Magic podcast,
where we discuss the different ways to weave magic throughout your daily life.
We are your hosts, Alyssa Lilly
and Tara Webb,
and we are thrilled to guide you in this magical journey of exploration and ritual.
Welcome back to the Weaving Magic podcast. I'm your host, Tara Webb.
And I'm your host, Alyssa Lilly.
Today we get to dive into Elemental Magick, what that is, how we can start living in accordance and abundance with this in our life, as well as ways that we can apply it individually to our life. And it's funny because Alyssa and I were doing money satchels earlier this week, and as Alyssa was finishing choosing herbs, I was going back through my old witch school notes and saw, the 5 elements and how to apply them to your self-care. And obviously it's funny because we just recently had an episode come out with self-care like a witch, which is totally that as well. But I think it's a bit more fun to look at throughout your day, how you can incorporate them. And really, I think it connects you more to nature as well.
I love the idea of, we talk about self-care like a witch in that previous episode, but being intentional with your self-care and bonding with each of the individual elements and how they can support you in bringing balance is, I know we've talked about it before because it's in your witch school notes, but I don't remember talking about it. So it's definitely something I want to reintegrate into my life.
And it kind of also falls in line with Ayurveda too, with, the elements of, ether and air and fire and water and earth and how those play into our constitutions and that kind of thing. But we're going to kind of maybe touch on that a little bit, but this is more so of what each of them mean even to us and the broad spectrum of it and stuff. So, Alyssa, which element do you feel like you tap into the most and it's easy for you to connect with?
Earth, hands down. That is the easiest element for me to get in touch with. I'm always really grounded. And I feel like when people have conversations with me that I always get feedback oh, I just feel so safe and grounded to talk to you. And so I feel like that just comes naturally to me. And I think all of the elements should come naturally to you in a sense, but there's definitely earth is what I'm more in tune with currently. And then to follow that up, my least is probably, I have to sit with that. I would say I'm probably least connected to fire at the moment, which is interesting because I have a Pitta digest when we get into Ayurveda. But
yeah.
What about you?
I feel like ether comes really easy for me, but I feel like when people connect with me and see me and hear me talk and that kind of thing, I come across as more earth. I have a grounded feel. I could be wrong, but I feel like that's kind of what people sense from me. It's easier for me to connect with ether and be in the clouds.
Well, tell us a little bit about what ether is for those who may not know.
So if we go through all of the elements in general, ether is that almost nothingness feel because you have air, right? You have your breath, the wind blowing. You have things that would inside your body that would be considered air. Would be kind of looking at the creativity of life. That's the airiness. Ether is even more above that. It's if you were to climb a mountain and you're losing the air progressively as you're going higher up. Ether's that headiness of I'm going to die, but this feels so cool. It's you're connecting, and you're kind of losing your breath in some ways. That's if you let yourself entirely be, in ether, right? Not being in the present moment, not being grounded, not listening to hey, I'm hungry right now. Those kinds of things. If you let yourself entirely be in ether, you will fade away because others are meant to ground you in. So if you come down from that, go ahead. I see a question on you.
I do. I have lots of questions. So I feel for me, I've always thought of ether as your spirit separately from your body. And so I'm trying to make the connection of what you're saying, the analogies that you're using.
Separate from your body, it would fade away. because
That's
your
true.
body is what grounds it in. That meat suit that we have is what keeps it intact within us. Without this meat suit, it would just disperse, or maybe it would go, I don't even know, right? It would go, where the energy would allow it to go, basically. So,
Well, now I'm curious. So when you say you're super connected to ether, what does that look or feel like for you?
for me, it's like, it's easy for me to tap in to get downloads. So like, I can easily ask something and I have an immediate answer in my mind, but then I, tap into my womb space and I can get an answer there. That's obviously the grounding. But my mind is kind of always connecting and processing and thinking through things within the spiritual realm. And that's even more so like, you look at something we just talked about in the self-care like a witch is we are processing situations constantly. And it's kind of, the ADHD or the autism or whatever it is. We're processing situations, and mine goes a step further where not only am I processing it, but then I'm like looking out into the future as well as the back. And I'm like looking at all the different strings of the web on like how they connect to these different things. And like if this person said this and like how it connects there. And I can be lost in like hours of just thinking, whereas you can be lost in hours of working. Of like being in being grounded, being in something that really brings you joy there. Mine's lost in my headspace.
So what makes that different from air?
Air is where you begin to tap into the creativity of it. Air, you don't necessarily get lost. You can get lost as you're creating, because air is so easily connected to ether. So it's like if you're painting something, you are going to feel the brush and like feel the creativity. And at some point that can be you, but then it shifts into the muse. You become the muse for ether, spirit, right? Because there's like spirit or the universe or God, that kind of thing. So ether can come in and like influence what you're doing, or you can just be creative and tap into your own creativity without being the muse.
I love that. And I love it's almost like the painter becoming the painting is a combination of air and ether coming together and bringing life. And it also brings earth because you're bringing that creativity to the physical realm. It's so fascinating to see how the different elements are all intertwined.
They're so easily connected, and they go down in the order that I'm saying, because I mean, ether can move ground somewhat, but not really. Like ground is very stable. So they're the furthest apart from each other.
So let's go through them in order. So we have ether,
air, fire, water, earth.
So we're on opposite ends of the spectrum. It doesn't surprise me.
We also embody what the other may struggle with really well too, right? Because I still have a grounded presence, and you can obviously tap into ether really easily as well. It's just kind of what we go more towards. So with the air, that's very much of, like I said, with the creativity and flowing. And that also, like if you look at your body, that's the dry skin and that's your breath. And, really connecting to breath work can also connect you to ether. The next would be fire. And the reason that kind of comes in the middle is because air can blow fire. Air can like make it start a forest fire, or it can kind of just stay stable. But that's how fire moves, is through air. So air then also moves the water, because without water, without air, it would be very stable. Like it would just stay and kind of, in a sense, be stagnant at some point, because it has to have like the breeze that moves it with a ripple. Even like the downward slope of things helps it move. And so let me go back to fire really quickly. Fire inside of you is like your passion, your digestion, your kind of the heat also within your blood. And that starts to go why fire and water are so closely connected. That is, I'll come back to these as well. I want to go through like what each of the beings can be connected to, the 5 elements too, because that's super fun. So then with water, obviously it can either move or not. It mostly moves through air, but then think of like, water can be cold. So like air can influence the heat of it, as well as fire influencing like boiling water and that kind of thing. So if you were to connect with
steam,
water, and steam, If you were to connect with water, you'd be connecting with like your blood, your tears, your bodily juices, which is a nice way to say it. Like sex magic.
But also your emotions too, right? I feel like water is very much an emotional element.
It is. And that also looks like obviously going out and, being near the ocean and that kind of thing with nature. And then obviously with earth, like that is the most grounded. It does not move. I mean, there's like rock slides, but that's a pretty intense like earth movement with air even helping that. And earth would be, your body, your bones, your teeth, also looking at whenever you're like choosing activities to do, are you going to be more grounded in staying on the couch, or are you going to go out and do something? Because even if you're going out in nature, that's still movement versus I'm just going to stay here and watch a show or something like that.
And I really feel like earth is also tapping into your five senses in the present moment and really feeling your body. I know for me every day, and maybe this is why earth really resonates with me, but every day throughout the day, I pause and check in and, how am I physically feeling in my body? What sensations am I feeling right now? Even if it's just my stomach growling, just tapping into what my body is communicating with me. So I love me some earth.
Which is definitely why I get so caught up in the day, because I'm going from thing to thing to thing and I'm flitting around like a little fairy over here and I'm over here and I'm like, letting my ADHD take over as I'm like walking around trying to clean, pick up this, and I go step here and like, oh, I need to finish the dishes, and like that's like literally throughout my day.
I just picture you like, ooh, piece of candy, ooh, piece of candy, ooh, piece of candy.
Mm-hmm. That is very much me, and so like grounding in is very important. And then, because this is so fun to me, you can connect them also to like the directions on where you go as you're like calling in the circle, the four corners essentially. And it depends on like where you are to call in your north and your south and your east and your west, because someone can be in South America and be like, my north is water, it's not ground, it's not mountains. So it does depend on you. So like if you were to call in the north, you would call it in and say, I'm calling through the mountains, which is for us. I'm calling through, the earth that's coming up. And then you can also connect with those beings, which is so fun. So like earth beings would be like trolls or giants. I'm trying to think of like other earth grounded ones.
I always think of elves when I think of earth grounded, little elves running through the woods.
Yeah. And like, so whatever you're connecting earth-wise.
Mm-hmm. I also think it's important to connect the polarity of earth, of the different elements when you go through casting a circle and calling in and bonding with him. So we have, the calm and stable earth, but we also have the extreme earthquakes and movement. When you talked about, rock slides, how that's a massive movement, that's powerful and that's still earth. And so it has these two different polarities that we can call in to support us, because both are valid and both are important to have. But before we move on to other elements, I want to also go through, let's talk about a little bit about what casting a circle is, because I think that some people may not know what that is.
I'll let you take that one.
Oh, goodness. Put me on the spot. So people who, I would say it's most common in witchcraft, right? When you're about to do spells or meditations or getting into a sacred space. I know Tara and I used to do it a lot. I would like to get back in the practice of doing it together, but we love to, and if you watch this on YouTube, I'm going to show you, but essentially I put my hands together to form, I don't even know how to explain this for people listening, to make a diamond almost.
It'd be like
triangle. Yeah, so my index fingers and thumbs are together, and in between my hands is a triangle. And we put it over our womb space.
It's almost more teardrop shape if you want to like add the extra to it. It's like a bit more teardrop when you go down.
Yeah, so it'll look like this. It'll be so your index fingers will be pointing down and it'll be over your womb space.
Mm-hmm.
And you can face the corners, you can draw a circle with it, but essentially what you're doing is you are connecting with all of the elements and bringing them in to support you in your endeavors, whether that is a simple meditation or a conversation or a podcast episode, whatever you're doing, you can create that sacred space of support and ritual to bring that magic into what you're doing. I know I used to do it a lot when I would make my morning coffee or tea. I would sit and I would connect with the elements over my coffee or tea and then speak intentions into it. And that was kind of my way of making that more ritualistic for me. What's your connection with casting a circle?
I was thinking about how I used to. I've been trying to bring it back in, where I'm more intentional when I'm stirring my drinks and drinking my water. Thank you, I love you. I've been trying to do that a bit more, but it's just like another reminder of how much I want to get back into it because it was so powerful. It just influenced my day very much so. What was your
It's transformational. Just making little I mean, that's what this podcast is about, right? Is weaving magic throughout your day. And it's okay if you are caught up in life and being a parent and taking care of your kids or, managing your job or all of the other responsibilities you have to juggle. That's okay. But the point is you can always come back to it and bring that joy and that life and that magic back into your life.
Definitely. What was the question you asked me?
What is your connection with casting a circle and what does it mean to you?
I learned very formally through witch school in the sense of like Mia led us through how to do it and that kind of thing. And it was...
That's where the diamond thing came from, right? Because I learned that from you. Yeah.
Yeah, that's where it came from, was through witch school. And you can like make the circle like Alyssa said. And you choose to face the directions as you go through. And another part of it was as you go through each of them, you're also like honoring the above and the below because you're as above as below. And ensuring that, I think it's kids and animals can like come into your circle. They don't have to break it per se. But when a circle's cast, you are supposed to be in that circle. You can open it at one point to like draw a little door if you need to go to the bathroom or something to go through it. But it's like once the circle's cast, you're supposed to be you and those that are in the circle are supposed to be in that circle until you close it out. And I mean, I had a really good experience whenever I was first tapping into past lives. I mean, it was literally like I was talking with you about witchy stuff. And I had to zoom in on your past life like immediately. And I was driving, and then from that until I got home, which is like maybe an hour and a half, I thought of someone and immediately was sent to their past life. And so I had to be really careful because I was drained and continuously draining myself because I was learning how to. It was adapting to my body as well as like me adapting how to figure it out. And the first thing I was doing was casting circles so that my energy would not be drained. Now I don't have to do it. It obviously is still very helpful, but it helps. It's like a big dome over you in a sense. So others can't get in to take your energy or, in for like those things. It's protection wise. And also so your energy doesn't just seep out whenever you're doing those things. Even like right now, as we're speaking on a podcast, it'd be cool to have one because then we're not feeling drained after talking, because interacting and talking is one way that kind of like takes your energy in a good way, not always like, a vampire. But that's definitely like the other part of it with the circle that I've learned. I used to do them with Dominic outside.
Oh, and Dominic loves it.
Mm-hmm. I need to get back with them doing it like with the kids. They love that kind of thing.
I also want to set the reminder that if you are thinking of trying to set a circle or anything like that, trust your intuition. There are rigid ways to cast a circle. There's quote unquote right and wrong ways, but the reminder that we have for you with magic is you make it work for you. So one of the things that Tara mentioned is you have to open and close it, and you have to be really strict, especially with kids and animals coming in and out. And for me, I feel like that's not realistic for my life because there's always so much movement going around. So for me, when I cast a circle, I set an intention of what the circle is supporting me through instead of visualizing a physical circle bubble around me. So it's, here's the intention. I am going through a meditation as I am creating my online course, for example, and sitting in that moment and calling in the elements to support me as I'm going on this adventure or endeavor. And then at the end, I thank them and move on. I think that's kind of my way of closing it. But if my kids come in, I don't want to be freaking out like, oh my God, my circle's broken. It's the end of the, it's not the end of the world. I promise. Trust your intuition, trust your inner knowing, your inner wisdom, and the way that you do it. There's no wrong way, right? There is no wrong way. It is your magic, and you get to create what this looks like for you.
Definitely. And that's what I was saying, is that it's supposedly dogs and kids can come in without breaking it. Like they have the kind of.
Oh, I thought you were saying like you had to be super rigid and like open a door for them. I was like, oh my goodness, that's wild.
A door for you, like whenever. And it's also, like you said, depends on space wise too. Like if you're being very intentional and you're doing candle magic and you're looking at the candle and you want to be there with the candle, then that's more of space, right? Like that's your intention, to be right there with that space. If it's like a walking meditation, you want to be outside but you still want to be in your space, you can like create a circle over you as you're walking, and that's like a different type of like movement with it. But supposedly, from what I'm understanding, kids and animals, like they have the energy to like not need to break it, quote unquote. They can just come in and be free with it because they're still like in their own little magic world. But even so, what I like what Alyssa's saying is like, I'm someone who's a bit more strict in the sense of I learn one way and then I adapt. Like I like to learn rules so then I can break them. So then I can do what I want. I mean, it's that way with cooking. Is I learned how to like have the mindset around Ayurvedic cooking, spices, and like how to do it. So then I could do whatever I wanted. But I like to have the foundation first. I think Alyssa's the other way. Like I said, like the space, I see my space. Alyssa isn't as much of a seeing person as we talked about in the other episode. Alyssa feels things. And so their space is going to be entirely different. And how they connect with the circles is going to be different as well. And I think you also just do your thing in the beginning.
Like, what do you mean?
Like you don't have quote unquote rules in the beginning anyways. You're like, I'm just gonna do this. It's fine.
That has been my introduction into witchcraft and magic, is just go with the flow and do what feels right. When I very first started, I was getting so hung up on the rules and restrictions and having to have a spell written out for me. And then when I would do it, it didn't feel right. And so I just wouldn't do it. And at some point I just started like, you know what? Fuck the rules. I'm just going to do what I want.
And I think that's so important. It's like if you know yourself to enjoy the boundaries so that you can then create your own, and as long as you create your own afterwards, right? Like not that you don't stay strict in those, but if you need the strictness to then flow beautifully afterwards, do it. But if you're someone like Alyssa that's like, nah, that's too much for me, I want to do my own thing, then do it. Like we said, there's no restrictions whatsoever on that.
And I really do think that comes from me. I need to feel the magic, and I feel like if it's a recipe, for example, written by someone else, I'm not truly feeling into it and connecting to the different elements of the recipe or whatever it stands for, you know?
And I like to look at recipes and like if it's a spell, a recipe spell, then I will take a foundation and then shift it into my own. That's the foundation of it. But, which I love that we went on this topic.
Back to the elements.
We've done Earth per se, and it, like I said, it depends on like where you are positioned. Me here in Georgia, the north would be mountains. Over to my east would be, let's see, the wind comes from the west. The south is water.
Your east should be water, right? It's south. You're right.
Because technically that'd be fire. Okay. Fire would be over to my east because the south would be water. But you could shift that because technically the further south you go, the hotter it is. So you could say that makes sense instead of, and then water, technically, like you said, there's the East Coast. And so we'll just go with east being water. And so, I connect with the water elements and, whatever. We also didn't add this in, whatever deities that you feel like connect with that as well. Yamaya, is that how you say her name? I think it is. The goddess.
I believe so.
I think it's either Hawaiian goddess or something that connects with the water. and like I connect with my blood and like those kinds of things as you're going through. The mermaids, the whales. You call in the spirit. That's something else I forgot was, in the earth, connecting with like wolves or dinosaurs, like, actual animals. It had to be like magical animals. Then you move over to the south, like I connect with fire, my digestion, and my passion and dragons and phoenixes and like those kinds of things. Move over to
And your rage and your passion. I feel like fire encompasses so much. And it comes back to kind of what I was saying about earth. And you can do this with water too, all of the elements. Seeing that campfire that's tame, but warm and cozy, but also seeing, the potential for wildfires and that rage that spreads, right? And how it's the natural occurrence in the way of that element.
like the whirlpool as well over the water. I think about like
or hurricanes, like just the big waves, tsunamis.
I think of how not water, air moves all of that. Like air is the conduit for all of it.
Air's like the glue that holds it all together.
Air holds it together, but then creates the chaos, which is why in Ayurveda, air is the first thing. Like if you're a Vata, that's usually where your imbalances lie. Vata being, ether and air. It will either be from that or most likely be what is causing it through other doshas.
We live for the chaos.
Which is exactly what we talked about in the self-care episode, is like being in the chaos around you, just how beautiful it is and thriving in that versus needing it to be perfect. Because like I hone in on the perfect thing.
We're releasing that.
We're releasing that. And then with the air, I mean, you can kind of see the pattern as we're going through all of it. But then after like you do each of the four, you can, bring it up top. For those who are watching YouTube, I can't connect my fingers. You can see, or, if you're listening to my voice, you're taking that symbol that Alyssa told you and you're bringing it up to your third eye. It's like connect to what's above you, the heavens, the universe, to
the sky, just generally.
like anything that's very ether feeling above. And they said, and I can like below, if you want to consider quote unquote below, my shadows, my dark self that I love, and like that kind of thing. Because as above, so below, everything is equal, and it's not like, oh, I don't want to connect to the evil energy of me. None of it's very important to love all that. And then I close out the circle by kind of going around again a few times, but the opposite way. So like if you're going to open it, you kind of go in the right, if that's how you feel. You go in the right.
Clockwise, yeah.
I was like, there's a word. And so you want to go counterclockwise to close it, like however many times I say 4, but whatever fits for you. And then I kind of end it with a phrase, something like as it is, as above, so below. And you just like whatever you feel like closing it as. It doesn't have to be a specific thing. Whatever you feel like is ending. Or you can just say, thank you. I would recommend thanking each of the ones you did call in the sense like thank you to the beings that were here, which I actually do that in the beginning as I'm going through, the fire. Thank you to the phoenix who shows me how to rise up from the ashes, and I thank them in the beginning as well. But
I feel like that's how I call them in too. Call them in as well is, thank you, fire, for coming in and supporting me and connecting with that energy and things like that. And it just comes to show there's so many different ways, because I don't go counterclockwise. I don't reclose in that sense. Is I end with gratitude, and I guess I do go back through the elements. I don't think I go back in any specific order, but thank you for supporting me in this endeavor. Thank you. And I make sure to spend the time to give gratitude for the support that was given for each element.
And I imagine like it coming back and closing in, like my energy's coming back as if the dome were coming back into me. And also with the like thanking them and calling them, I feel like I'm like losing my train of thought and trying to catch the little tail end of it. I think I'm just gonna let it go.
That air is coming in to cause the chaos.
Very much. So, how then can we look at applying these throughout our day. Like I love what Alyssa said of applying it like when you're circling your drink. That's a very easy, immediate way, right, to apply the 5 throughout your day. If you want to go deeper, we think it'd be fun to like really plan out, okay, in one day, what is something you can do for each of these? And it doesn't have to be like intense, like deep meditation and deep breath.
And it doesn't have to be casting a circle and getting into witchcraft if that's not your thing either.
Like for us, so for an example, how can I embody, and I'm going to do mine, I think Alyssa can do theirs afterwards. How can you embody the 5 elements of my day? So I think it'd be fun for me to definitely do some breath work, maybe 5 minutes, because I need more of like the grounding energy. It's funny, breath work grounds me versus like lifts me up. So that grounding energy. Ether is spending 5 minutes in silence. It doesn't have to be meditation. It can even just be me sitting right there in bed when I first wake up, or checking my pulse, because I like to check my pulse and like bring my dosha up so that I'm kind of not letting my vata go wild, bringing whatever my base dosha is up. And so that's silence right there. It's kind of connecting with earth, with my body, but I choose that to be like my ether. So connecting through that through silence. Fire would be doing something that brings me passion. And that could be working on my book. So I would make sure I spend 30 minutes a day really doing that just lights me up so much. So we've done air, ether, fire, water, taking a bath. And I laugh because
which sounds so simple, but it's important.
I'm very good about, so like for someone else, I need to be like, being really intentional with my water drinking, right? That's very important. I am very much hydrated on how much I drink throughout the day. I was messaging Alyssa one time, like, every time I drink water, they're like, you drink water a lot. I do. I pee all the time. So mine would be like really, either washing my hair or taking a bath or taking a shower, because I feel like it's part of the ADHD thing of, oh, there's so much to do with that. I don't want to get started.
That's also a parent thing. I feel like showers and baths just hit the bottom of my list for whatever reason.
I like to really oil my body too. And so, afterwards, I'm like, well, then I have to do all that or my skin's going to be dry and I'm going to blah, 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 blah. Excuse. There you go. So that could be, if you want to kind of combine 2 of them, I'm going to take a shower or bathe once a day, and the earth part of that, oil myself, because it combines them. That way
touching your body and oiling it in. Oh, I love that.
That way you're like combining them and not feeling like, okay, what's this extra earth thing I have to do, So that would be mine. Alyssa, what would yours be?
So water for me would definitely be hydrating. And I think I'm gonna start back up. I used to do check-ins with my little social community, and I haven't done that in a while. And I've noticed that I've gotten out of the habit of drinking water as much as I used to. So my self-care and the way that I'm connecting with water throughout the day is by intentionally drinking it. And loving on it, giving gratitude when I drink my water and setting an intention when I drink my water and making it a magical process for me is really important. Something that I used to do that I'm going to start doing it again is I like to set alarms, and my phone is set up where it will play a Spotify playlist for the alarm, so I can have some fun music going off to remind me to go fill up my water, and I can do a little jig on the way, and it just brings me so much joy. Let's see. Earth and ether, I'm going to combine. I haven't pre-thought these through, so you guys get this live as I'm thinking through how I'm going to incorporate this week and going forward. But earth and ether, I'm going to combine together and going on daily walks of just silence and not taking my phone, not checking notifications. A lot of times I go on walks, I listen to like a podcast or something, or I call Tara or my husband. No, just silent walks. For around my neighborhood, and just being present, I think is really important for me. For air would definitely be breath work. Breath work, while it is very grounding, it is also a way for me to connect to my creativity, because I feel like for me, air gets kind of lost and I get overwhelmed by it, and breath work helps bring it down in and allows me to connect with it in a way that makes more sense for me, which is why I ground it. It makes sense when I say it. But what am I missing? Is that all of them? Fire. I'm missing fire.
Yeah, I don't think it's
Fire. The one that I probably least connected with. That's funny. I think for me,
I think fire's calling you out to connect with it more.
it really is. And it's been calling me. It's been calling me out in other ways too, outside of this. Say that again.
Lighting a candle every day and like really honing into the fire when you light the candle, maybe.
I mean, I do that. I do let it because I have a candle that's.
Are you intentional about the fire when you actually light it, or is it like, okay, light it, intention, but is it like really gazing into that fire and like feeling it, the fire inside of you?
No, I don't do that. For me right now, I light the candle with the intention of like I have a work candle and I have a magic candle. So my work candle is me entering in my zone of genius, and then I blow it out to close that connection with my work for the day. But I think for me, lighting the candle and taking the time to bond with the fire energy, it would be really good for me. So that's going to be my self-care.
Alyssa and I both. Oh, I just blew mine out. That makes me sad. Alyssa and I both have candles that we light when we do magic together. I just blew mine out because I was smelling it and I was like, oh, you could even smell the candle as like part of the. Which I'm gonna relight mine. But that's a fun way. Is like every time you kind of like if you work from home, I think it's such a beautiful idea that Alyssa does is lighting a candle for your job and then choosing to not to burn myself. It's okay. Choosing to blow it out and like I'm done with the job at the moment. I'm done with the energies, and I'm gonna walk away from this and go downstairs, go somewhere else, and light a different candle. That's like this is my home candle, my family candle, which I would like to do more of. I have one that's kind of always lit downstairs, but I like the idea of shifting between those because it gives you that physical cue. There was one thing I read one time that Justin said this one guy would come home from work and he would touch the tree and although I feel so bad for the tree, he would give his worries to the tree. Maybe the tree, maybe they had a good connection, right? And it's here's
it's giving it back to the earth. Yeah, okay.
He would do that, and that meant that whenever he was going into his house to his kids, he would leave everything would be left behind. There would be nothing. The moment he put his hand on the tree and just really took a few breaths, he would then go inside the house. And I think those cues are really important. But back to what you were saying, I think fire is. I see a lot of fire in you.
Oh, hands down. I know I have a lot of fire in me. And I think that's where when I get super passionate about something, I get so tunnel vision that everything else slips away because that passion fuels me to the point where I will have lost 5 hours of my day and not drank any water. So I do know that there's a lot of fire. I think it's bonding with the fire. It's bonding with the masculine energy in a healthy way because we're just so used to the toxicity of it, right? So that is my endeavor, is to bond with that energy and figure out what a healthy fire masculine energy looks like for me.
And I think that's so interesting because it got me thinking on our traumas and how they can influence those elements in our life drastically. So maybe you felt like when you were younger that you couldn't tap into your passions and what really brought you joy. And so you only did it when you were in a safe space. And when you're in a safe space, you channeled it, right? It's what is it for other people? If it's water, maybe and this is very literal, you had water that was limited throughout you. When you were home, you couldn't drink water all the time. You had it limited. And so now you have a difficult time actually keeping yourself hydrated, which then gives you the headaches, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm very curious. I think it's another thing for us to maybe chat about on another episode or go deeper ourselves is where do our traumas influence our connections to the elements and therefore ourselves? Because
preview coming soon.
We will get that down for you. That's that's the spark, the ether being oh, by the way, let's derail the conversation. really derailing you.
I do love that, though. I think that's going to be a really good podcast topic, because I could get into it right now, but I feel like that would be, yes, we're doing that. I need to sit with it internally myself first.
Mm-hmm.
I think, yeah.
Definitely.
So our challenge for you, Magic Weaver, is to align with how you can bond with the elements this week and really intentionally make time for each one daily.
Mm. And share with us on Instagram so that we're going to share as well. Like, we're going to be going through the week, posting about it. So share as well so that we can see what you're connecting with and really cheer you on.
This concludes another episode of our Weaving Magic podcast.
We release one episode a week, so be sure to subscribe to catch the latest episode as soon as it releases. You can find us on Instagram at Weaving Magick Podcast. That's Weaving Magick, MAGICK Podcast.
We would also love it if you could leave us a review. If you do, make sure to email us your review so we can send you a thank you gift. Thank you so much for joining us, and don't forget to find a way to weave magic into your daily life.